is Labour making progress? So, Sir Keir Starmer today laid out 5 missions for the country, 5 things he wants to accomplish if he was to become the Prime Minister of the UK. So we're going to so just to go over them, do they actually mean anything? Are they going to make an impact at all on the chances? In general, is Labour making any progress? So this is Emily Hassell, you're Yossi Goldberg. What do you think? Is Labour making any progress?
Well, there's no question that if politics is all about perception and how people view you,
yeah,
we've said that a lot of times, then the perception of Labour is that it's almost a governing party. No question.
Especially, for example, that last week, I think it was, Sir Keir Starmer went to Ukraine.
Yep.
And he made himself look like a Prime Minister that way.
Yeah, have you ever heard of this term, the smell test? It's like a smell test where you can sort of... You forget the facts for a moment, forget the statistics and all that, just look at what does it feel like, what does it seem like, right? And you look at Jeremy Corbyn, forget anything else, he did not look like a person who could be Prime Minister, he just didn't, right? Even Liz Truss, to be honest, it's a bit of a surprise that she got there, because she doesn't really come across, she doesn't command authority in that way at all. Keir Starmer looks like a guy you can imagine in number 10, doing all the stuff he needs to do, standing on the world stage, being a world leader.
That's what he's trying to prove.
Yeah, and you can see that, and that's great. So in terms of presentation, in terms of showing he's a serious person and a serious party, I think they're making progress. But I was laughing when I saw these 5 pledges, because
Should we just read them over?
Yeah, it's all hot air.
Yeah, so the first one is securing the highest sustained growth in the G7 groups of rich nations by the end of Labour's first term, which basically means, in normal language, grow and grow quickly, grow securely, make the UK grow securely and grow quickly. The second point is making Britain a clean energy superpower, removing fossil fuels from all of Britain's electricity generation by 2030.
Okay, good luck.
Yeah, basically that means removing all fossil fuels from Britain within 7 years, less than 7 years.
Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, improving the NHS, reforming the justice system, and raising education standards. What I think he's doing is just ticking the political boxes that make it seem like that people like. So these are probably he looked at the issues. What do people care about? These are things people care about. Let me just say these are the things we care about as well.
Yeah, but you know what? That's politics. If you can say that convincingly, then people believe you. But I tell you, they've got a much bigger problem on their hands, which I actually was hearing today on the Spectator Politics podcast, where they were saying how there's no money to spend. Labour traditionally loves spending money. Famously when they left in 2010, the Chief Secretary of Treasury left a note on the table, which you can find on Twitter. People always post it every now and again. It was like a handwritten note saying, "Sorry, there's no money left," and then signed his name. And I don't know what the meaning. I don't think it was a joke when he wrote it. I'm not really sure what he meant. Right? Yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he was cracking a wisecrack. Excuse me. But the Conservatives have brought it up time and time again. You see, you Labour, you come in, you spend all the money, there's nothing left, right? Well, that's what they like to do. But his hands are tied. There ain't no money to spend. So what's he going to campaign on the next election? He can't really breathe any traditionally Labour hope unless he appears to be financially incompetent. You can't do that either, because since the financial crash of 2008, Labour have tried to recover their image of financial competence. They're trying to show, no, we know how to balance the books and we're not going to do anything strange. So what's he supposed to do? All he can do is hot hair and apple pie. There's nothing else he can say. And I didn't look the whole video, but I watched clips of him, with his shirt sleeves standing there talking. He looked convincing. He looked all right. He looked the part. Personally, I think he's a genuinely good guy. Do you know what? If Rishi Sunak would be the face of the Conservative Party, I'd probably vote Conservative next election.
Rishi Sunak?
Meaning, if Rishi Sunak would embody the Conservative Party as a whole, if the Conservative Party would be what Rishi Sunak is, I think they'd be in a much better place. Do you really like
Rishi Sunak?
I think he's a good person.
Being a good person doesn't mean you're the right person.
I think he wants the best for the country.
So does everyone. I don't think that. But honestly, everyone who goes into politics thinks this is the best thing that they're going to do. They're not always right.
Well, okay, so let me put it this way. Economically, I think I'm a bit more Conservative than Labour, right? Yeah. I did vote Conservative last election. I think the idea that you want to balance the books, you don't want to borrow too much, although I like benefits personally, but you don't want to, overpay benefits. I get all that. And you want to get people back into work. You want working to pay, all that stuff. Conservative concept, I'm fully with it. But I just feel like they're burnt out. They've got nothing left to offer. Rishi Sunak himself is young and fresh, but none of them are the rest. The apparatus of the country is just falling apart. Nothing's working. It's just doesn't really make sense. So I think just give Labour a chance. That's kind of my thought. But the shame is that I just don't know how are Labour going to improve the NHS? Can I ask you, how are Labour going to improve the NHS? The NHS, the backlog is millions of people waiting for appointments. The bureaucracy of the NHS is only getting worse. They're spending hundreds of thousands a year on diversity chiefs and all sorts of stuff.
Hasn't every single politician that's come into politics for the past
Claimed
15, 20 years said they'll improve their
and
NHS?
the Conservatives, to their credit, have pumped tremendous amounts of money into the NHS.
If they haven't achieved anything, then that's not to their credit.
No. So what Labour's supposed to do? I genuinely feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
I don't think...
I mean, should we look? We can even go over each one. So securing the highest sustained growth.
What does that even mean?
Yeah. I mean, he says within the G7 of rich nations by the end of Labour's first term.
I don't know. I think Liz Truss was like that. Growth. That's what she spoke about all the time.
Yeah, it's like when you say growth, and all these things, I feel you're not actually outlining what you want to do.
You see, the Conservatives have an argument, which is that you cut taxes and that increases growth. Now, I'm not an economist, so I've got no idea if they're right or not, but that's what Liz Truss tried, and it went belly up. So you can't even do that. The other thing Labour do is now we borrow, because good interest rates, we can borrow money and push money into the system and public services and infrastructure, and when you invest in that, then that creates growth. I hear that argument. You don't have any money, so you can't do that either. So I don't know what they mean.
Yeah, and then the second one is making Britain a clean energy superpower, removing fossil fuels from all of Britain's electricity generation by 2030.
Yeah, do you know Boris Johnson tried that when he was
2030?
Well, he did say at one point there was going to be a quick shift to non-fossil fueled energy. His wife is a big environmentalist and all that. And they worked out that if they start putting electric, what they call heat pumps into people's houses so they don't have to rely on, it was going to cost like 50, 60 grand a house.
50, 60 grand a house?
So, yeah. And it's just like, it's unsustainable. It's just not going to happen. Unless you build nuclear power. But do you know how long it takes for a nuclear power station to become active? About 10 years. So if Keir Starmer gets in next year...
So the thing is, I think by him saying this, and let's say when is a vote? When is it?
May 24 probably.
2024, sorry. So if he gets voted in next year, and then 2028, he'll have to say to them, listen, I said by 2030, this is 2028, you need to vote me in. Let me come for another couple of years, and then I'll be able to help. But listen, if you vote the Conservative Party this time, then it's not going to happen. So I think that might be one of the reasons why he said 2030, although it's unsustainable. Then when it gets to 2030, that's a different discussion. Then improving the NHS, you're right, we talked about that's just... What does that even mean? Reforming the justice system.
It always needs reforming. I mean, there's loads of cases backlogged and, good luck.
And then raising education standards once again. That's what Rishi Sunak's doing right now.
Do you know that Tony Blair in 97 had a pledge card, which was the same idea, but he called it a pledge card, and he's calling it 5 missions or whatever, but 5 statements on it. I don't have it to hand, but Tony Blair had specific targets,
very specific that the public could actually judge if he accomplished or not.
Finding £100 million more for the NHS.
See, this is something that a politician should do. Should actually be very specific, and the public could judge him. Did you do it? Yes or no? Yeah.
Well, the Conservatives tried it by the last election in 2019. Boris Johnson, to his credit, was good at that. He had like 20,000 more police officers and this and that and the other. Well, we'll see if by the next election we can count on them for that. But I think Keir Starmer's playing a long game here, though. I think that despite all the things I've just said against negatively about his speech and these missions and the meaninglessness of them, it's a stage-by-stage process. You put out these things in general form now, and you hammer them a bit over the next months. And when the time comes, you then bring out your manifesto closer to the actual election, where by then it's too late for Conservatives to steal your ideas. Because don't forget, this is how it works. If Labour come out with an idea that's really good, the Conservatives will steal it and rename it. And who will get the credit? Not Labour. Only the Conservatives will get the credit because they're in power and they can actually affect it. They can do it. And I'll give you one example of that. Labour came out with this great idea, let's tax the oil companies. They came out at the beginning of last year, I think it was. Whenever it was, they were making mental profits. The cost of living crisis was just sort of getting going. Conservatives completely and totally nicked it. They called it something else. They didn't call it a tax and all the rest of it. I can't remember what they called it. Surplus, whatever they called it. They nicked it and they got credit for it. Conservatives gave us all money towards our heating bills. But it was Labour's idea, and no one remembers that, and no one cares about that. So that's why Labour have to be careful from going into too much detail. So, I think he's playing a long game.
Would you vote for Labour next time, as the country is right now? Or you don't know?
I would vote for Labour, but only because I just think the Conservatives are tired out. They just run out. They run out of steam. You look around the party, and it's like, I don't know. I like David Cameron. I think he was a good guy. It's a pity about Brexit. It really is a pity, because I think if they could have run the campaign slightly differently, I think the Remain might have won and things would have been a bit more settled. But I think time to give Labour a chance. It's not a political podcast. I'm not trying to advocate people should vote for Labour, but that's just my thoughts on it.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for coming
Thank
on,
you,
Yossi.
Ollie.
Thanks.